Mr. Shapiro, I've been going over your lab work here, and I'm afraid I have some bad news.
I would urge you not to use the argument from authority.
Excuse me?
Because somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about.
I'm your doctor. You have stage 2 syphilis.
That's a dumb argument.
Ben Shapiro is a conservative pop icon. You may know him from his smash hits such as Ben Shapiro Destroys, Ben Shapiro Slams, Ben Shapiro Destroys Feminisms, Ben Shapiro Smashes Feminisms. He's known for going on TV shows and college campuses and really sticking it to those pesky liberals with facts and logics. The catchphrase associated with him is "facts don't care about your feelings." His fans consider him a great sharp mind for destroying dumb dems and debauchery and daring debate. How dashing.
I'm here to tell you that none of that is true. He's not good at debate. He's not even good at getting facts right, really.
You're debating somebody on a stage, in which case your goal is basically to humiliate that person as badly as possible.
Hello. I got gluten last week and there is a celiac rash right on my face.
Celiac attack is more than just a funny name. I really have celiac disease. Oh well. But instead of going through the big library of Ben Shapiro content that's out there on the internet, I'm going to focus specifically on one particular video. This particular video is from YouTuber Charisma on Command, titled 7 Reasons Ben Shapiro is So Dominant in Debates. This video is basically a fanboy's love letter.
Ben Shapiro is one of the most famous and skilled political debaters out there.
And a quick look through his other videos really paints a picture about the kind of person Charisma on Command is. That is kind of ad hominem, and you could dispute the relevancy of that at this point. So let's focus on his arguments in this video first.
And third, Ben obviously does quite a bit of research, which is really tough to combat without figures of your own.
If you're richer, you tend to be married longer on average. People who are poorer tend to get divorced more
Where did
often.
you get that statistical
The
trend?
Census Bureau.
Now, research is necessary, but I'm more interested in the tactical side of the debate rather than the prep, so I won't go any further into it.
I know his name is Charisma on Command, but I'd like to put just a little pin in this and point out that by saying this, he's already sacrificing the importance of objectivity and weighing rhetoric more heavily. He might claim that that's not really an important or relevant critique, and that he just does this for the sake of the video, but it does set a precedent that he will repeat later on.
Let's begin then with Ben's defensive debate tactics, starting with catching non-arguments. And that's because not everything that sounds persuasive actually constitutes a valid argument. For instance, when you hear that 9 out of 10 fill-in-the-blanks believe something, that doesn't necessarily prove a point. That is an argument from authority, and though it might be compelling, more evidence is required to be deemed conclusive.
Notice the examples he uses here. A cheap advertising tactic and doctors smoking. He prefaces this section of the video so you will view the rest of this section with those two already in mind. He is right in that more evidence is required for something to be deemed conclusive. However, he follows that up with Piers Morgan.
We urge you to listen to the American public and to the law enforcement community in support of a ban on the further manufacture of these weapons. That was Ronald Reagan.
Okay, so? I mean, I can disagree with Ronald Reagan.
You keep one of the great right-wing presidents of modern times agreed with me.
So?
Another common debate.
Whoa, look, he edited out Piers Morgan's response. You didn't really need to do that, Charisma. It's really easy to look better and smarter than Piers Morgan. I do it all the time, every day, just by virtue of not being Piers Morgan. The clips that are being used here don't really prove anything, though. It's Morgan saying that he agreed with Reagan on something, and Shapiro just going, so? So isn't even an argument. It's just contradiction.
Well, an argument's not the same as contradiction.
Can be.
No, it can't. An argument's a connected series of statements to establish a definite proposition.
So?
It's kind of like a spoiled kid asking why to everything. It's almost like Charisma on Command is leaning on Ben's authority to claim that this is a valid form of debate. Almost.
Another common debate tactic that maybe isn't done on purpose and doesn't constitute a valid argument is getting emotional, particularly when the other person gets upset or offended. Now, when Piers Morgan did that, Ben wisely didn't engage him because simply being offended doesn't prove anything.
Except he then shows a clip of Ben engaging him.
He's mere standing on the graves of the children that died there. How dare you?
I've seen you do it repeatedly, Piers.
So on the one hand, he doesn't engage because he's so wise, but on the other hand, here he is engaging.
Like I say, how dare you?
I mean, you can keep saying that, but you've done it repeatedly.
He's even doing that awkward little laugh with his eyes closed. He's a little muted in showing his emotions, but they're there. But Zach, his argument isn't necessarily emotional just because he's expressing emotions.
The late Christopher Hitchens put this same idea rather bluntly.
If someone tells me that I've hurt their feelings, I say, well, I'm still waiting to hear what your point is.
Right.
This quote doesn't really back up the point. There is a difference between hurting someone's feelings while in the pursuit of truth and just being a dick who sets out to upset people. At any rate, this Hitchens quote is in reference to offending creationists.
It turns out if you follow the money trail back for a lot of these things, this whole creationism, teaching creationism idea, you'll eventually find political organizations that are trying to energize a base, right? And these bases,
yes,
what they'd like to do is to get these people to feel like they're being attacked. And in a lot of the discussions we have and in your presentation, there's a fine line between attacking people versus attacking ideas, right? What do you do to kind of ensure that you're not going after people and not making people feel like you're telling them that they're idiots, for example?
It's almost like COC just stuck this quote in because Hitchens is still a somewhat respected intellectual, and COC was making an appeal to authority. Maybe not even an appeal, just hoping you'd associate him with Hitchens. Well, if Charisma on Command gets to make an appeal to authority, I want to make one too.
Who's Ben Shapiro? Well, he's an anointed neocon snotnose who walks around making Richard Pearl type faces, where he tries to act scary and powerful. He just recycles a bunch of libertarian conservative thought and a bunch of other think tank stuff. And I just noticed he's always criticizing me and always trying to keep people off my show while he makes little faces like this. I mean, these are the faces 5-year-olds make when they're playing G.I. Joe.
Technically, that's not an appeal to authority because he's not really an authority on anything, really. But it's a funny clip.
Pushing for specifics. People often hold very broad opinions very strongly without necessarily being able to articulate what they mean concretely. And of course, this happens on all sides of the political spectrum.
Now, I agree that people believe things without researching them. And usually most people are just too busy to spend the time researching something unless it directly affects their life. But, did you hear that? Let's play that part back.
And of course, this happens on all sides of the political spectrum.
Did you hear that chuckle in his voice when he said all sides? I know it's a bit of a meme about being an enlightened centrist or saying both sides are bad, but I'd like to remind you that this line is in the section of the video titled Pushing for Specifics.
He takes the necessary first step of pushing that other person to provide specific examples.
I don't know what the Republican beliefs are.
Yikes. First Piers Morgan, now Bill Maher. Wonder if Charisma on Command is going to give us any examples of Shapiro debating smart people. It's not looking like it.
What the Republican beliefs are. I mean, you're a young guy, but you certainly remember 2 years back when beliefs were completely the opposite of what they are now.
Well,
which
which ones?
Free trade.
This is absolutely critical. Do not get wrapped.
Whoa. He didn't follow through with the conversation. In the actual clip, you can see Ben Shapiro doesn't actually push for any specifics beyond just saying, like what?
The opposite of what they are now.
Well, which
they
which ones?
Free trade. They were
I agree with you.
giant deficit hawks.
Yep.
The Tea Party was all about we're going to solve the deficit.
Yep.
Gee, that makes you good at debate. Just saying what? And even then, simply saying free trade isn't that specific. Do you mean lowering tariffs? Do you mean outsourcing of American labor? Do you mean minimizing corporate subsidies? These are all examples that you could argue relate to free trade. Doesn't go into detail about that, does he?
Yep.
The Tea Party was all about we're going to solve the deficit.
Yep.
But they didn't, did they?
Well, the Democrats ain't gonna do it either, so.
I know, but they didn't say they were.
Mr. Calm here doesn't follow through on this point. He instead moves on to another clip of Shapiro stumping an inexperienced college student.
Push the other person to relate exactly what they mean specifically, like in this example.
What are you even talking about? When you say institutional racism, it's too broad. You at least have to name me the institution. Which one is the racist one? Which institution is racist? Tell me which, like, so we can fight it, seriously, so we can fight it together. Just, I want to be on your side. I do. I want to fight racists. I think racism is, I think racist behavior is evil. I want to fight it with you. But I can't fight it if you're not showing me what it is.
And of course, Charisma once again moves on before we can see what happens. Now, if you pull up the original video like I did, the guy with the mic says, "Thank you," and pulled the mic away from the student.
Honestly, I would love to sit down and talk with you for an hour about it because it's a worthwhile conversation, and I think we could actually get somewhere with it. But I think that slogans generally tend not to be particularly effective in getting us to solutions.
Okay. Thank you. We have time for 2 quick questions.
This is not exactly a new take. Most of Shapiro's critics know exactly what he does. He talks authoritatively and fast, is often surrounded by his fans, and goes after young, inexperienced kids. And he debates young kids who aren't quite used to public speaking or are experienced in debate. They almost never interrupt Shapiro, even though he constantly does it to them. Because they're not only really nervous to be there, but they are also probably used to polite society where it's considered rude to interrupt and gish-gallop someone. Like I said, not exactly a new take. So, even though his name is Charisma on command, and this section is about pushing for specifics, you won't see him bring up any of this. I don't consider that being good at debate or good at charisma. It's kind of cheating your way there.
Similarly, and lastly on the defensive side, Ben knows his arguments inside and out.
Okay, first off, what a ridiculous title.
So he doesn't get sucked into defending points that his argument doesn't require. For instance, in this next clip, Ben is talking about how Trump will say outrageous things knowing that it sets the media ablaze. And his point is that Trump knows what he's doing and he does it on purpose in order to control the news cycle. Now, when Don Lemon responds saying that Trump shouldn't be doing that, Ben doesn't bother defending the morality of his actions. He's only talking about the purpose of them.
So that sounds like deflection. Answer the question you wish was asked.
It says some things that are outrageous, like people in the media aren't patriotic, knowing that people in the media are immediately going to turn it up to 12 on the Richter scale.
But Ben, don't you think he should be truthful in his comments, even if he's funny, and if you give him that, shouldn't he be truthful? And he wasn't.
Of course, and I think that this is where the media. Here's my advice to people in the media.
This entire exchange, to me at least, it sounds more like the guy made some offhanded comments that were delivered in the middle of these awful, boring television talking head talks. Like, look, none of these 4 guys are really pros. This isn't really a debate setting. Ben's just giving another goddamn rant, and this one guy was the only one interested in getting a word in. But no, we're not going to delve any deeper into that. We're going to give on some bizarre point about defending his honor.
A general rule of thumb is that if the other person winds up attacking you, you are actually winning the debate.
We're going to give some bizarre point about defending his honor.
So Ben usually doesn't get sucked into defending his own honor.
And in it, writer Jane Coaston says you have hollow bravery, calls your campus speeches shadow boxing, and if you wanted to be genuinely brave, you challenge, quote, some of the wrong-headed ideas held by your right-wing fans. How do you respond to that?
And if you didn't notice, this is from Pro-Life Weekly on the Eternal Word Television Network, a Catholic cable network. I don't even own a TV.
Number one, I've never really attributed bravery to myself. I don't think that it's brave to walk on a campus and talk to kids. I think it's brave to be a member of the military. I think it's brave to be a cop. I think it's brave to be a firefighter. I don't think it's brave for me to walk with a security team at my side onto a stage. If I thought that I was going to get shot and murdered, then I probably wouldn't do it. So I don't consider myself part of that group anyway.
What is the point in even including all that? Talking about seeing soldiers and emergency personnel as brave is completely irrelevant to the question that was asked. If I did something like that in a debate, or especially in response to Ben Shapiro, people would accuse me of virtue signaling. I know this because he did that with that institutional racism student that you linked in the clip earlier.
What I find really problematic is the virtue signaling that I see by so many people on the other side, which is, I don't have to give you the racist, I don't have to tell you who he is or what measures I'm proposing. I just say institutional racism, everybody cheers for me because that's an approved point of view, and now we move on with our lives. You haven't helped anybody, you've just made yourself feel better.
COC cut that part out, though.
Ben wisely doesn't bother defending his own bravery and instead sticks to the points that he knows are strongest to his argument.
I guess the whole non sequitur virtue signaling Ben Shapiro rant here is wise, according to COC. Okay.
One of the big ways that I see him stump his opponents is through the use of SNUCK premises. Essentially, you introduce the exact point of contention as a given, and that's through the clever use of language. Now, this isn't to pick on Ben because we all do this from time to time.
I think you'll find that, no, we don't all do that.
So first off, see if you can find the SNUCK premise in this next case.
From Planned Parenthood, as you may have noticed, I'm mostly against abortion. If you want to go to Planned Parenthood and get a contraceptive, go for it. I don't care. I do care when you start killing babies. This is a problem for me.
So according to Charisma on Command, this is reason number 5 why Ben Shapiro is so dominant in debates. But this is where I disagree the most. I think most of us have met someone in our lives who does this kind of thing. Or we've seen them in the media. This behavior isn't something that makes you a good debater. It makes you a dishonest slime ball.
Again, a SNUCK premise introduces a contended point as a given, so what counts as a SNUCK premise shifts with each position of each person involved in a debate.
He's right to point out that Shapiro does it, because Shapiro does do it. A lot.
Now, in the context of the abortion debate, pro-choice versus pro-life,
again, you'll notice that Shapiro does this to yet another inexperienced college kid. In addition to the nervousness and lack of experience that I mentioned before, this person now has to contend with this underhanded trick Shapiro just pulled. And they're probably rightfully taken aback that someone would even engage in this. They're probably going to take a few moments for their brain to process what just happened. But no. Yay. Let's all cheer him on for owning that lib. She wasn't ready. Ben Shapiro just destroyed the entire New Deal coalition.
Now, in my experience, most debates are won or lost on SNUCK premises.
Really? You know, that says an awful lot about you and the people you associate with. I know his name is Charisma on Command, but I didn't think that was meant to be a literal take on his personality.
If the other person winds up attacking you, you are actually winning the debate.
Concealing the steps we take to arrive at our conclusions, we can get there without the other person knowing exactly how they disagree with us, but still being stuck.
This line, right here, deceive and confuse to win arguments. And in his experience, most debates are won or lost on SNUCK premises. Now, at least he admits it's cheap.
So if you want to win cheaply without having your ideas challenged, this is an excellent tactic. That is how you can win a debate even if you're wrong.
Isn't a debate supposed to be you challenging ideas? This entire point is just avoiding your ideas, getting people hung up on something completely different. I guess it's entertaining if you're in a room of people who already like you.
I'm going to leave this for now and move to another effective rhetorical tool that I see from Ben. It's moving from the abstract to the concrete.
When you're coming down off that salvia high. He really glosses over this whole section. In fact, it doesn't really make too much sense. He basically is just admitting that this is using an anecdote to set a rule.
And it looks like this.
I think that focusing on poverty is a good thing to do. I think focusing on income inequality is not a good thing to do because there's no correlation between income inequality and relative rates of poverty. Right? There's tremendous income inequality in a lot of places on planet Earth. In fact, in all places on planet Earth. If you go to Sudan, there's going to be a rich warlord there, and then there are going to be a bunch of people living on $6 a year.
This works because the specific example seems to prove the broader point that preceded it. And the final piece for this video, at least, is that you want to emphasize the conditions under which you would agree with your opponent. We previously saw Ben do this with regards to institutional racism in a previous clip.
Racist behavior is evil. I want to fight it with you, but I can't fight it if you're not showing me what it is.
Gee, that's such a high bar for him to meet to agree with someone. Racism is evil. With Ben Shapiro on our side, we'll have stopped racism once and for all.
Here he is talking about Trump's impeachment and the Mueller investigation.
Look at us, we can agree. Look at how rational we are being. Truly we are intellectuals.
But
dude, I'm happy to wait for the Mueller indictments, and if they come down and they target Trump, I'm happy to see him impeached. But I need to see evidence. Where's the evidence?
But just throw it in the trash.
And if he throws it in the trash or quashes the Mueller investigation, then yes, impeachment should be on the table.
Thank you, Ben.
Gee, that's such a high bar for him to meet with someone. He's essentially saying, I'm bad. But he's not caring much about the details it takes to get there. Convenient for him that his bar is Mueller indictments targeting Trump. There's been a bit of debate as to whether or not you can even indict a sitting president. Shapiro has a law degree. I'm pretty sure he's aware of this. I imagine if it's bad enough, they'll probably do it. I know I'm a fool and one of those poor unfortunate souls for believing this, but I'm one of those folks who actually cares about the truth. I mean, I guess all of this is probably good advice to follow if you want to win. Or at the very least, it does give you a window into how their minds work. Sacrificing my intellectual integrity to own the libs. Oh, I guess this is the end. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and thanks. I love you.